Record this computer. Hello and welcome. We are so excited that you are interested in learning more about the Louisiana Decision Support Tool for carbon management. This tool from the Great Plains Institute and the Carbon Action Alliance was created in partnership with SWCA, Carbon Solutions, and Franklin and Associates. Over the course of 18 months, these teams worked together to develop interactive maps, gather data, craft easy-to-understand language, and engage community members to develop a tool that is useful, reliable, and accessible to all. And while this tool was specifically intended to help community members and project developers thoughtfully and equitably site carbon management projects across the state, it can also be used to help inform numerous other social and environmental projects in communities across Louisiana as well. A full detailed breakdown of this tool, its creation, and the methodology behind it can be found in the story map on the main page right here. We encourage you to take a moment to read through this story map to help provide further context about the project. Here you will find an introduction to the tool, as well as introductions to the Great Plains Institute and the Carbon Action Alliance. You'll learn more about carbon management, what it is, how it works, why it's important, and how we know it's safe. You'll also learn about the state of Louisiana and the many things happening there around carbon management and other efforts to meet our climate goals. You'll also learn about the audience and community members that we engage with to help make this tool a reality. Finally, you'll learn how to use the tool. So in addition to utilizing this guide video, you can use this section of the story map to help learn about the 3 individual maps that make up the tool themselves. They are the social factors map, the environmental factors map, and the comprehensive social and environmental factors map. So let's scroll down and start by looking at the social factors map. As you read through this section, you will learn more about the map itself. But to get us started, we can click on this icon at the bottom of this section. To get here, you can either scroll all the way down, or you can also click on social factors map at the toolbar at the top. As we click, it will load a map of the state of Louisiana broken down into various census tracts. You'll notice that each census tract is color-coded based on a scale of 0 to 100%, as shown in the legend to the right. This scale indicates the vulnerability level of each census tract when compared to the rest of the state. You will notice that census tracts are colored gray if they have a vulnerability score in the 50th percentile or lower. To zoom in and see census tracts in greater detail, simply click on the plus or minus icons in the bottom right of the page. Or you can use your mouse pad to zoom in as well. Let's start by zooming into a census tract outside of downtown New Orleans. As we click on the census tract, it will automatically populate information regarding to the overall social factor score for this particular census tract. This shows us information in each of the different categories that make up the social factor score, including environmental hazards, demographics, health, climate change, and public service gaps. If you wanted to learn more about each of these individually, you can simply click on the different categories at the top of the page. We'll do that more in just a second. I also want you to notice the various tools that exist on the right-hand side of the screen. These tools are helpful for you to understand and uncover more data all across the map. You can utilize the legend here at the top. You can click on map layers to see the different layers of data on the map itself. So for instance, here, if I wanted to see the population density, I would simply click out of overall social factors score to remove that view. And then I would click on population density to populate that view. Here I can see that the census tract we're working with is not very densely populated compared to the rest of the New Orleans area. You can also click on the printer to print out different reports. And you can click on the search tool to search for a specific address or place. Now, when we click on the census tract, it does populate this information to the left. In the bottom, we see a table that breaks down the vulnerability score in each of the 5 categories. And the top shows a breakdown of each of the different subcategories within each of the 5 categories that make up the social factor score. So, for instance, if we wanted to go and scroll down to see information around the health category on this page, we could simply scroll in the top box, and we would see that the health category is broken down into 3 different subcategories. Each of these measure data around asthma, heart disease, and low life expectancy in this census tract. So by looking at this health category, we see that 23.7% of the adults living in this area have asthma. We would also see that the health category has an overall vulnerability factor of 77 out of 100 for the state. Now, let's say that we wanted to learn more about a specific category. Let's look at public service gaps. So as we click on public service gaps, we would be able to zoom back in to our census tract that we were just looking at. And when we click on it this time, it will load information specific to just this category. So here in the top left corner, we see that this category is also broken down into 3 subcategories that measure data around broadband gaps, food deserts, and individuals who are medically underserved. Let's say that we wanted to do a deeper dive into food deserts in particular. We would see a few things here that allow us to do that. First of all, we would see that 83.4% of individuals in this particular census tract are considered to live in a food desert. The definition of a food desert is located here in the subcategory measure box. At the bottom, we see that this particular census tract ranks in the 91st percentile when it comes to the amount of population living within a food desert. And if we wanted to see that visualized, we would again simply click on the map layers. We would remove information about the category score, and then we could click on food desert to see how it ranks to surrounding areas. Now, let's take a look at this same census tract using the environmental factors map. If we go back to the story map, we would just scroll down to the next category or click environmental factors map at the top. Again, this gives us more information about the environmental factors map. In order to open the map, we would simply click on the icon down here. As the map opens, we will zoom back into our census tract. We may notice immediately that things look like they're scored a bit differently. And they are, because the data we're using is a bit different from the data we used in the social factors map. This map takes into account existing laws and policies that designate protected lands and restrict development. Areas with fewer restrictions are ranked as a 1 or a 2, and areas with greater restrictions are ranked as a 3 or a 4. In this same census tract, we can see that most areas are listed as a 2 or a 3. That tells us that they have low to moderate or a high risk of environmental resource sensitivities and constraints based upon current existing laws and policies. Again, on the left-hand side, we see a breakdown of each category and subcategory on the map. And as you'll see, both in the left-hand chart at the top of the page and the map is broken down into these different categories. So just like the social factors tool, we have 4 categories that make up this particular score: the landscape category, the wildlife category, the water resources category, and the built environment category. So let's choose to learn more about the landscape category for this particular census tract. Well, we would just click on landscape. We would zoom back into our census tract once the map loads. And we would see as we click on it that the majority of the area isn't necessarily affected by sensitivities and constraints when it comes to landscapes. We would be able to see in this chart to the left that the 2 main areas that have sensitivities and constraints are agricultural land and protected areas of the US. Now, if we wanted to see that visualized just like before, what we would have to do is in the map layers, click out of landscape category and click into agricultural land. And that would show us where the agricultural land exists in our particular census tract. Now, let's say we wanted to know what facilities or infrastructure already exists in this area. Well, to do that, we would click on Built Environment. And just as we've done before, we would zoom back into this census tract. We would click out of the Built Environment category score. And let's say we wanted to understand if there's any industrial facilities that exist in or around our census tract. To see that, we would just click into the industrial facilities view, and we would find that there is in fact an industrial facility within our census tract. To understand more about that particular facility, we would just click on the industrial icon, which would pop up the information about the plant itself, including the facility name, what type of industry it is, and the total reported direct emissions from that particular facility. We can do this for all of the different information and map layers that exist within built environment, including power facilities, crude oil lines, railroad corridors, and more. There is so much rich data within this tool, but there's one more thing we want to be sure to show you, and that is the comprehensive map. As we scroll down one more time on the story map page, the comprehensive map combines the social and environmental factor scores into one easy to understand score. As you click on the map, you will notice that the areas are no longer broken down into census tracts, but into individually and equally shaped factor cells. We broke it down this way to help ensure that the combined data from the social factors and environmental factors are factored evenly and accurately. So let's go back to the same census tract area we were looking at before. We can view the data in a few ways. We can click on each of the individual factor cells to see the combined factor score for that particular area. Or if we wanted to see a factor score for a larger area that's larger than one factor cell, we can easily do that without having to add all of these different cells together. The way we would do it is we would click on the siting tool in the top right of the page. When you click on that tool, it will open up an area at the bottom of the page that allows you to define an area of interest. If you click on the Draw Polygon tool, then you can simply outline an area of your choosing. Double-click when you're done, and it will pop up with the combined score, as well as the individual environmental and social factor scores. As you click on it, it will show you what the combined social and environmental factor score is for this area that you outlined. Here we see that score is 49.86. We see the environmental factor score is 38.86, and the social factor score is 60.86. This is a really great tool to use if we're trying to understand the vulnerabilities and sensitivities over a larger area beyond just one factor cell or one census tract. Now, if we wanted to, let's say, save this report or print this report out, we could simply do so by clicking on the Download All or Create Report icons right here at the bottom of the page. This is a really great way to be able to put all this information in one place that's easily accessible to you. You can save all this information and come back to it later, or you can go and do the same exact thing in any other area of the state of Louisiana to help learn about the vulnerabilities and sensitivities all across the state when it comes to the potential of citing different carbon management projects, and when it comes to understanding social and environmental factors that may pertain to any other project in communities across the state of Louisiana. All of these options in this tool are designed to provide easy access to important data and information that can inform both the carbon management siting process as well as those numerous other potential projects. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about the Community Decision Support Tool for the state of Louisiana. We hope it is useful to you and your community, and we welcome you to provide feedback as we continue working to make this tool as effective as possible for every community across the state.